Hey y'all, welcome back to Homestead in the City. I'm Zach, and today we're going on a tour of my garden. So starting off in our chicken run, this is at the top of the yard, and oh boy, you can hear our hens now. So the chickens not only provide us some good eggs, but they also turn our food scraps into compost. And this is where I put a chair in here to make sure Percy wasn't getting in, because we've had some issues with that. So I sat in there with him for a while. But this is the chunnel in our chicken run. This is made from those evergreen branches that we bent over to provide hawk protection. But you can see this is at the top of the hill of our yard and at the very back. And so looking out, you can see our food forest and orchard area. But whenever it rains, all of the nutrients that are up here in this chicken run area should start to wash that way and give nutrients to the rest of our yard. And if we ever want to truck it out of here, take it in a bucket or something, then we're just moving it downhill with gravity and not fighting gravity. So that's a couple reasons why we put the chicken run back here. And then we'll move on from here to our food forest. Our food forest area is right outside of our chicken run. That's where we have a lot of different things planted densely. We have nut trees and fruit trees. We've got different shrubs and flowers and bulbs. I've even got it lined over here with some logs that were inoculated with mushroom spawn. And you can see right here some of the fresh shiitake that we've gotten. And we have dried out some of these, turned them into some good powders. I'm actually even making a soup with some tonight. Oh, and this pile of pallets up here, these are the old raised beds that were in the front yard. They're gonna be turned into firewood that we're gonna use at our patio whenever we have friends over. And then that, the remains from that gets turned into charcoal, and then we throw it in that compost bin with the chickens, and that gets turned into biochar that goes into our orchard area. P.S. Comment if you support a constitutional ban on leaf blowers. They are the worst. All right, so in the middle of the yard, we've got our 7-row orchard, and that's actually starting to look a little bit more managed now as things are growing in, as we're pruning them, as Percy is digging in here. It's coming together, and so I'll kind of show it in two parts. First, we've got our soil building pathway system. And so that is where we've just trucked up loads and loads of mulch from our mulch driveway that we'll see in just a second. And we brought it in this backyard. Percy loves to dig up in it. And honestly, you can hardly tell it's mulch now, Purse. But you can see where wood chips are breaking down. And I'll go over to another hole because Percy doesn't like you interfering with his digging. But we can see down here kind of the sandy quality of the original soil that was in there. And right about there, you can see the line where I started adding wood chips about 2 years ago, and we've just piled them up. And also, as Percy has dug up and mixed in that sand with the wood chips, they're breaking down into some really dark soil. And so when you compare it to what it was and what it's becoming, you see a huge difference. And so you can see as he digs, sometimes that gets thrown up onto the beds, and that will just slowly mulch them and build it up. And this is where I'm pretty proud of Percy. You can see he didn't do the best right there, but we've told him not to dig in the beds, and we've used these trees to mark where the beds are. Look how good this boy's been digging right along the line of where he can. And the cool thing about it is you can also now see just how raised these areas are from the ground level up with all that new compost and soil that's building. So in each of these rows, we've planted different fruit trees. We've got the bananas here, we've got plum here, different apples and pears, and we're pruning things in a backyard orchard culture style so that a lot of trees can fit into a small space. Our whole lot is about 1/4 acre, so I don't know how big this backyard is, but we have, I think, about 24 fruit trees crammed in all back here. So it can be done. We're not gonna get the most fruit possible per tree, but we're gonna get a lot of different varieties for the amount of space that we have, which is what we really want. One of the other things that we love in the garden is our water features. This was the very first one, our fountain pond. It's running off of a pump, and now we have a few other ponds. And what I love about that is not only does it provide some good water to water our plants if we need, that's very nutrient dense with the compost that's falling down in there and the fish in it, but it also provides some white noise to just make the garden a little bit more of a private area and a nice place to relax. In my greenhouse area, that's kind of in transition right now. I've got my solar panels disconnected right now, but they are able to power this little pump whenever I needed to. And so this is powering some compost tea. Right now I have some tomato cuttings kind of growing in that, but this is where I'll go. I love coming in here. I leave my coffee mug sometimes, and I can just get a little mug of coffee from there, turn around, and water the plants that are in here. And that is going to be some really good water. I've also got the water running out of here, and we'll see where that's going in just a second. Oh yeah, when I talked about good soil building, all of the soil that is in this garden tower and this guy over here actually came from the yard. This is some of that broken down sandy wood chips, and all I did was run that through a screen, and we're gonna see how well it does for actually growing plants. Of course, at the bottom of the garden, we have Percy's Pond. That was the very first water feature we had. That was a digging hole of his that we eventually lined. And now it's right at the entrance when you're coming from the side yard. So I'm going backwards now, but if you're coming to my gardens from the front, this is the pathway you come up. That's my wagon where I used to bring in the wood chips. Then if you're up front, you're gonna see what's taking more shape. We've got this raised garden bed area, and these are the new metal beds that we put in that replace those pallet beds that we had for 2 years that are now being turned into that firewood in the back. And so I got those filled up and planted out with some starts that I got at the farmer's market. But what I did to fill these beds, I know a lot of people use the log method. That's kind of a hugelkultur type thing. What I did was a little bit of inspiration from Hugh Richards over in Wales, but I turned my composting pathways into that fill material. So where we've had the pallet beds, I've been intentionally over the last 2 years filling in stuff, turning over these pathways and whatnot. And then when it came time to put in the new beds, all I had to do was take a pitchfork and dig this stuff up, and I filled them up maybe 2/3 of the way. And then I brought in some good compost and put a little bit more, and then we got some bales of hay and mulched that off. Now if I want to hand water these beds, I can just come over here, grab a watering can, and get it from this barrel that's right beside them. And what's really great about that barrel of water, it will automatically refill as I empty it from this hose that's draining from that compost tea uphill. So this is that good compost tea that's going to be applied directly to my garden beds. Oh, and I've mentioned the wood chip pathways breaking down, turning into that great soil. That is all fed by this area. It's our mulch delivery driveway. It's separate from our car driveway, which has been an issue in the past. So we can get a full truckload of mulch dumped here at a time. We've had, I think, 13 so far. And this is basically about the level of where the yard was. And so you can tell now, I don't know if we can tell, but this bed is about chest height on me. And it's up on a hill now of just layers and layers of wood chips. And so all of these wood chips are breaking down, and down at the bottom, you can see some of the oldest stuff. And I mean, that's doing nothing. That's just leaving wood chips sitting in the yard. These logs were used as a retaining wall to hold all that stuff back. And the fungus in the soil is starting to even break down these massive logs. Look at that. They're just turning into sponges. And I can squeeze out water. And that is all water that would have gone downhill and flooded my downhill neighbors. But we designed our whole yard through the lens of love your neighbors as yourself. So one of those things is to reduce flooding. And my first line of defense in the front yard against that is these rainwater catchment beds. They are, it's hard to tell, at the uphill side of the driveway, and they are dug down from the level of the driveway so that water can drain into these beds. And then from the beds, it goes into that hill of mulch, which is just acting like a huge berm over there to hold that water on the yard and infiltrating down into the yard before going downhill. Now, right now on these beds, I just have some winter cover crops planted out. I think I have, actually I think it's mostly just mustard right now. And then on each of the berms, we have a different variety of peach tree. So we didn't get any peaches this year, but next year we're hoping for a good batch. That's just kind of an overview of the front yard. Oh, I gotta hit the hill. And then at the top of the hill, we have some more of our raised beds. These I really just filled with some of the broken down wood chips from down there. Didn't even put more compost on the top. And this has my ginger and garlic. We're gonna see how that does. And of course it's mulched with this hay. But you can see under here, like that's just that wood chip material. So we're gonna see how it does, how it breaks down, and how things grow in it. Once again, not much to say about the berry hedge. If you are a nursery watching this and would love to talk about a sponsorship opportunity, we would love to fill it with your blueberries or mulberries or whatever berry you have. We'll name this hedge after your nursery for a while if you want. Let's talk. That's all I got for today. See y'all in the next video.